Hi everyone, this is Laura with the Fitness Skinny. I am showing you exercises today you can do on the exercise ball chair from Mantra Sports, and really a complete home gym system combining the exercise ball and resistance bands. You have resistance bands that are attached to the base where the ball balances. And I'm realizing pretty quickly that you can also adjust the resistance straps based on the exercise that you're doing. So I'm starting out working arms and realized I didn't have enough resistance. Thread the end of the resistance band through the handles. There's a way to clamp down on the resistance band with using a plastic knob. So you just screw the knob tighter to keep the resistance bands in place, and you align them right and left so they're about the same length, and then you're good to go. So I also realized pretty quickly when I started to demo this system that you can adjust where you're sitting on the ball instead of adjusting where the resistance bands are attached on the base. So instead of getting up and switching the resistance bands to the front instead of behind, you can just stand and flip so you're facing the other direction. So that's an easier adjustment than having to stand and slide the resistance bands every time you switch up your exercises. So I'm starting with arms, just to give you an idea of what you can do on this thing. What's nice about using the ball is you're constantly sitting upright and your core is engaged to keep that nice tall posture because you're balancing on the ball. Even though it's on the base, I realized it still feels unsteady because there's a little gap between the base and the ball. So if you're moving around, the ball is going to move around. So your core has to stay still or embraced the whole time to keep the ball still. Notice I changed the angle so you can do narrow biceps, wide biceps, and then just adjusting the straps where they are in space. So now you can see they're in front of me. I can do more like a front raise variation, if you will. My palms are down on this one. You can always switch your palms up. Now the straps are on the outside of my legs, so I can do like a shoulder exercise where I'm starting narrow and going wide, similar to kind of hug a tree. Or you can play with rotating and twisting on one side or the other, adding a little bit more oblique work. Just make sure your shoulders are staying away from your ears and your hips are staying still on that ball. You can do the classic Pilates shaving, so making your hands in a diamond shape, bringing them behind your head. This is really good for working those upper traps right in the center of your upper back. Melt your shoulders, keep a little space between chin and chest. You can go right into what's called the Pilates hug, where your fingertips, your pinkies are rotated up just slightly, working your chest here, squeezing an imaginary ball. You can do shaving variation where you bring your hands in front of your head. Changes it a little bit. It actually makes your core turn on a little bit more. You can do a variation, what's called punching, where you're alternating from right to left, staying centered, not wobbling in your shoulders or your hips. Here's some more shoulder variations for you. Again, just changing the angle will change the work. So find variations that work for you based on what you're wanting to work in your arms. But I loved this. I loved combining the component of balance with the arm work. My core was always engaged. You can do little pulses. You can do big range of motion, going kind of back to that hug a tree, but now my palms are more centered. You can do what's called scoops, where you turn your hands in that underhand grip, going from low to high, about shoulder height, keeping your elbows still but slightly bent. You can take shaving a little bit more elbows narrow, hands wide, so it becomes more of a tricep exercise instead of traps. Again, keep your spine long, chin off your chest. Then I was playing with extension, so laying on that ball, stomach resting, chest off enough, but using your feet for support. You can have those bands slightly in front of you to do like airplane variations. You can lift your chest, make sure you're lifting with your core. Keep the back of your neck long so you're not looking up. Keep the integrity of your spine the same. I love the idea here of trying to do like more balance, which I'll show you here in a second, but taking the band on just one foot. I didn't show this variation, but you could almost go opposite arm, opposite leg. So I'm kicking my right leg back. You could reach your left arm out. So that would incorporate even more core stability in this exercises if you wanted to play with more balance. And then taking straps on both feet, you can go back into that laying across the ball on your stomach, hips supported, stomach supported. And try variations like swimming, or you could do opposite arm, opposite leg in this position. And I really noticed that balance was a lot more tricky on these with having just one hand touch the floor. So you could play with variations here. I was trying a little swimming, noticing that you definitely need at least one or two hands touching the floor for stability. Getting in and out of this was a little bit complicated. I'm not gonna lie, I needed help. My daughter put those straps on my feet for me. So recruit somebody maybe to help you get in that position. And then there's a whole series of flexion you can do on this ball, which I loved these. I felt my core immediately. You can do kind of like a crunch variation with those straps in front of you. So you're pushing into that resistance. You have constant feedback. Your core is engaged the whole time. You can do one arm up and do a more of like a side bend. So you're isolating your obliques as you rotate to the side, keeping those hips stable. What's genius about this combination of resistance band and ball is that your core is having to work harder than it normally would to balance on every exercise. There's always that element of balance. So I'm highly recommend trying this combo. It's a lot of fun. You can do things like go back to those arm movements that I was doing. I liked isolating one side and then the other. So you can play with that, feeling your obliques have to stabilize the sides of your abs. You can adjust the tension. So if you felt any neck tension at all, you could go lighter, making those straps longer. So longer is lighter, shorter is heavier, obviously. You can combine arm movements with your crunch. You can stay in a crunch position and flow through some arm movements. I remember this burning a lot. I was also playing with trying to take one leg to the sky. So similar to those exercises I was showing earlier, keep those going and just take one leg to the sky. So you're really having to balance. I've noticed that it was not easy even getting into that position. So you can do one side and then the other. So you're always having one foot on the ground for stability. Believe me, I tried different scenarios where I was thinking I could maybe potentially kneel on the ball, but I was too unstable. So if you try this later and figure out a way to get nothing touching the ground, I would love to see it. Let me know. Then I'm going into these V-up, if you will, or teaser variations where you can do one leg or the other. These were extremely hard and challenging to balance, so you can play with those. I was having this resistance in front of me at all times. Side body, I feel like there's endless amounts of side work that you could do here with a strap on your top leg. Bottom, notice my bottom leg is supporting the other strap and it's staying grounded. You can do side kicks. The side kicks actually were really hard to balance. Notice my ball is wanting to shift forward and back. So you're keeping everything stable. Hips are stacked. You could play with that top arm. Taking it away from you would be harder. And then I tried a whole series where I shortened my straps even more from the front. So doing more of a weighted front raise. I crossed my straps and that was awesome with a slight hinge forward, which was really great for working that upper back and shoulders. I did more like an upright row version here. Hard to see, but my straps are crossed and I choked up a lot. You don't necessarily even need to use the handles, so you're not having to adjust every time if you wanted to go really short on those straps. And then last but not least, you can do a whole seated series here with your leg knee extensions, just loading that strap on one leg at a time. I hope you enjoyed my little demo. I hope you check out this home gym system by Mantra Sports. Thanks for joining.